My heart was full of a bright, shining hope. It was the kind of hope that makes you feel warm all over, even on a cold day. I had worked so hard for this moment. I had saved every penny. I had filled out so many papers. Finally, my children were coming. They were leaving our home country to join me in this new Western land. I imagined their faces at the airport. I saw their eyes wide with wonder. This new place was a promise. It was a promise of a better life. It was a promise of good schools and big dreams. I wanted them to have chances I never had. I wanted them to see a world bigger than the one they knew. The day they arrived was a festival in my heart. The air itself seemed to sing. I held them close, my son and my daughter. I breathed in the familiar smell of their hair. They were here. They were finally here with me. We drove from the airport and they looked out the window. Everything was new to them. The tall buildings looked like they touched the sky. The clean streets were wide and endless. The cars moved in a disciplined, quiet dance. I pointed things out to them, my voice filled with excitement. "Look," I said, "that is your new school. Look, that is the park where you will play." This was not just a new country. It was a new beginning for us, a fresh page waiting to be written. In my mind, I had a perfect picture of our life. It was a picture painted with bright colors of happiness and success. I saw my children in their new school uniforms, looking smart and proud. I imagined them making new friends, learning new things, and speaking English with a new accent. I thought about the opportunities that would open up for them, like doors to 1,000 beautiful rooms. They would go to university. They would become doctors or engineers or artists. They would be anything they wanted to be. This was the dream that had kept me going when I was alone in this big country, working long hours and feeling the ache of missing them. This move was more than just about changing locations. It was about changing our destiny. It was about breaking a cycle of limitation that I knew so well from my own childhood. Back home, life was hard. The schools were not always good. The future was not always certain. Here, I believed, the path was clearer. The system was designed to help you succeed if you worked hard. I wanted my children to have that solid ground beneath their feet. I wanted them to have the confidence that comes from knowing you have a real chance. Bringing them here was my greatest gift to them, my ultimate act of love as a mother. I was ready to build our new life brick by brick with hope as my foundation. The first few months were like a beautiful dream. Our small apartment was filled with laughter. It was a sound I had missed so much. My children were full of curiosity. They asked questions about everything. Why is the bread in a bag? Why do people wait for the green man to cross the road? Their questions made me see this new world through their innocent eyes. We explored our new city together. We went to the library and they were amazed by the number of books. They ran in the green parks, their faces lit up with pure joy. We ate ice cream even when it was cold, just because we could. It was a time of simple happiness, and my heart felt full and content. I enrolled them in the local school. I was so proud on their first day. They looked a little nervous but also very brave. I watched them walk into the school building, holding their new backpacks. I wanted them to fit in. I wanted them to be happy. In the evenings, we would sit together at the dinner table. They would tell me about their day. They told me about their teachers and the new friends they were making. My daughter, always so talkative, would describe her art class with great detail. My son, who was quieter, would tell me about the games they played during break time. These simple conversations were the highlight of my day. They were proof that my dream was coming true. We created our own little traditions. Every Friday night was movie night. We would make popcorn and cuddle on the sofa under a big blanket. We would watch animated movies, and I would laugh as much as they did. On weekends, we would try to cook a dish from our home country. The smell of familiar spices would fill our kitchen, connecting our new life to our old one. It was important for me that they did not forget where they came from. I wanted them to have the best of both worlds. I wanted them to be proud of their heritage while embracing their new home. These moments made us feel like a strong family unit, a team ready to face anything. I saw them changing in good ways. They were becoming more confident. They were learning so much. Their English was getting better every day. Sometimes they would say words that I did not even know. It made me so happy. I felt that I had made the right decision. I had brought my children to a place where they could grow and flourish. All the sacrifices I had made felt worthwhile. I looked at their sleeping faces at night and felt a deep sense of peace. My children were safe. They were happy. They had a bright future ahead of them. This was all a mother could ever ask for. After about a year, things started to change slowly. It was not a sudden storm. It was more like a slow, quiet drizzle that you don't notice until you are completely wet. The sweet harmony in our home began to fade. The children were growing up. They were becoming more influenced by their new environment. They started to question my ways of parenting. The things that were normal in our culture back home were seen as strange or too strict here. For example, I expected them to help with chores around the house without being asked. But they would say their friends did not have to do that. They wanted more freedom, more independence in a way that I did not understand. The arguments started to become more frequent. They were often about small things. Things like bedtime, or the amount of time they spent on their phones, or the friends they were choosing. My daughter especially was changing. She wanted to wear clothes that I thought were not appropriate for her age. She wanted to go to her friends' houses for sleepovers, something I was not comfortable with. I tried to explain my reasons. I told her that in our culture we do things differently. But she would say, "We are not back home anymore, Mom." Her words felt like a small knife in my heart. It felt like she was rejecting everything I was trying to teach her. I felt like I was losing them. I was trying to hold on to our values, our identity, but they were being pulled in another direction by the powerful currents of this new culture. The school and their friends were teaching them a different way of life. A life where children could question their parents. A life where individuality was more important than family duty. I was not against individuality, but I believed in respect. I believed in discipline. I tried to find a balance. I tried to be a bridge between the two worlds, but it felt like the bridge was breaking. I was trying to be a good mother, but I started to feel like I was failing. The tension in our home grew thicker each day. The laughter was replaced by silence or angry words. I felt a deep sadness and confusion. I had brought them here for a better life. I never imagined that this better life would create a wall between us. I loved them more than anything in the world, but I did not know how to connect with them anymore. It was like we were speaking different languages, even when we were using the same words. I felt lonely in my own home, surrounded by the very children I had sacrificed everything for. The dream I had cherished so much was slowly turning into a difficult reality. The breaking point came in a way I never expected. It started with a normal disagreement. My daughter wanted to go to a party at her friend's house. I said no. I felt she was too young and I did not know the parents of her friend. She became very angry. She shouted at me. She said I was ruining her life. She said all her friends were going. I stood firm. As a parent, my first job is to protect my child, even if she does not understand it at that moment. I told her that my decision was final. She stormed off to her room and slammed the door. The sound of that slam echoed in the silent apartment and in my worried heart. The next day, she was very quiet. I thought she was just being a moody teenager. I had no idea what was happening in her mind. I later learned that she went to school and talked to her friends. She told them how strict I was. She told them I had shouted at her. Her friends, who grew up in this different culture, probably saw my actions in a very negative light. They likely told her that my parenting was wrong, maybe even abusive. They encouraged her to speak to a school counselor. They told her that there were people who could help her. In her anger and frustration, my daughter listened to them. She wanted to show me that I could not control her. So she went to the school counselor. She told the counselor a story that was a mixture of truth, exaggeration, and teenage drama. She said that I was always shouting at her. She said that I was too controlling. She may have even twisted our cultural discipline into something that sounded much worse. Perhaps she said I hit her, confusing a traditional form of discipline from our past with something more sinister to fit the narrative she was building. She did not understand the power of her words. She did not know the serious consequences that would follow. She was just a child trying to win an argument with her mother, using the tools this new world had given her. I was completely unaware of this ticking bomb. I was at home cooking dinner, waiting for my children to come back from school. I was hoping to talk to my daughter, to explain my feelings and to listen to hers. I wanted to mend the rift between us. I was thinking about how to be a better mother, how to understand her world without losing my own. I did not know that a report had been filed. I did not know that my daughter's words had been written down in a formal document. I had no idea that strangers were now discussing my family, judging my parenting, and making decisions that would tear our world apart. It was late in the afternoon when I heard the knock on the door. It was a firm, official-sounding knock. It was not the knock of a friend or a neighbor. My heart started to beat a little faster. I opened the door to find two people standing there, a man and a woman. They were dressed formally. They did not smile. They introduced themselves as social workers. They said they were here because of a report they had received from my children's school. They said they needed to talk to me and the children. I was confused. A report? What report? I invited them in, my mind racing to understand what was happening. They sat on my sofa, the same sofa where my children and I used to cuddle and watch movies. They started asking me questions. Their questions were sharp and direct. They asked about how I disciplined my children. They asked if I ever hit them. They asked about the argument with my daughter. I tried to answer honestly. I tried to explain our culture. I tried to explain that I was just being a responsible parent. But my words seemed to fall into a vacuum. Their faces were blank, unreadable. They listened, but I did not feel like they were hearing me. It felt like they had already made up their minds about me. I was a foreigner, a single mother, and now an accused parent. Then they said the words that shattered my world into a million pieces. They said they were going to have to take my children with them. For their safety. My safety? I was their mother. I was their protector. How could they be safer with strangers? Panic washed over me like a cold wave. I begged them. I pleaded. I cried. I told them this was a mistake, a misunderstanding. My children entered the room then, their faces pale and scared. My daughter looked at me, and for the first time, I saw regret and fear in her eyes. I think she was only just beginning to understand the terrible mess she had created. They told my children to pack a small bag. My son started to cry. He ran to me and held onto my legs. He did not want to go. The social workers gently pulled him away from me. I felt a pain so deep it was physical. It was like a part of my body was being ripped away. I watched them walk out of my apartment with my children. My daughter would not look at me. The door closed, and the silence that followed was deafening. My home, once filled with hope and laughter, was now an empty, silent tomb. I collapsed on the floor and wept until I had no more tears left. It was the darkest moment of my entire life. The days that followed were a blur of pain and confusion. I was not allowed to see my children. I could only speak to them on the phone for a few minutes, with a social worker listening to every word. The legal process started. I was accused of child violence. The words themselves felt absurd, like a nightmare I could not wake up from. I had to go to court. The courtroom was a cold, intimidating place. Everyone spoke in a formal language that was hard for me to understand. I felt small and powerless. I was assigned a lawyer, a kind woman who tried her best to explain things to me. But I felt like I was drowning in a sea of legal terms and procedures. During the court hearings, I had to listen to the testimony against me. I had to hear my daughter's words being read out loud. Her exaggerated stories were presented as facts. My methods of discipline, which were normal and accepted in my culture, were described as abuse. Every aspect of my life was examined and judged. They looked at my job, my income, my home. They painted a picture of me as an angry, unstable mother who was a danger to her own children. I wanted to stand up and scream that it was not true. I wanted to tell them about the sacrifices I had made, about the deep love I had for my children. I felt so alone. I was fighting against a system that did not understand me or my culture. It felt like my culture itself was on trial. Things that are considered good parenting back home, like teaching children respect for elders and giving them responsibilities, were seen here as being too strict or controlling. I tried to explain this to the court. I tried to provide context. But it seemed like they only saw things through their own cultural lens. It was a painful and humiliating experience. I felt like my identity as a mother and as a person was being erased and rewritten by strangers. Through it all, my only thought was of my children. I worried about them constantly. Were they scared? Were they being treated well in the foster home? Did they miss me? My lawyer told me to be strong, to present myself as a capable and loving mother. I gathered all the strength I had left. I spoke in court. I answered their questions as calmly as I could. I told them about our life, the good times, the laughter. I admitted that we had problems, like any family, but I insisted that I loved my children and would never, ever hurt them. I was fighting for my life because my children were my life. After many long months, the court case finally ended. The judge ruled that the children could return home. It was not a complete victory. I was ordered to attend parenting classes. A social worker would visit us regularly, but my children were coming home. That was all that mattered. The day they came back, I felt a mix of overwhelming joy and deep anxiety. I cleaned the apartment from top to bottom. I cooked their favorite meal. I waited by the window, my heart pounding with every car that passed. When the social worker's car finally pulled up, I rushed to the door. Seeing them walk back into our home was a moment I will never forget. We hugged for a long time, all three of us crying. There were so many things to say, but we did not have the words yet. The joy of our reunion was real, but there was also a shadow between us. The trust had been broken. The experience had left deep scars on all of us. My daughter was filled with guilt. My son was quiet and withdrawn. I was trying to be strong for them, but I was wounded too. The first few weeks were awkward. We were careful around each other, afraid to say the wrong thing. Our home, once a place of comfort, now felt fragile. The problems did not end with their return. The children had to face their own battles in the community. When they went back to school, other kids knew what had happened. Some of them were cruel. They called my children names. They said their mother was a bad person. My son got into a fight with a boy who was teasing him about being in foster care. He came home with a bruised cheek and a broken heart. My daughter became very isolated. She lost many of her old friends. They had seen our family's private pain become a public spectacle, and they did not know how to deal with it. It was heartbreaking to see my children suffer because of this. I had wanted to give them a better life, but now they were facing social stigma and bullying. We had to become a team again, to support each other. We talked a lot. I told them that what other people said did not define us. I told them that we knew the truth of our family and our love. We spent a lot of time together, just the three of us, rebuilding our little world. It was a slow and painful process. We were healing, but the scars were a constant reminder of the storm we had been through. Today, life is different. It is not the perfect dream I once had, but it is our reality, and we are learning to live in it. We have found a new kind of normal. The social workers' visits have stopped. The parenting classes are finished. We are on our own again, but we are not the same people we were before. The experience changed us forever. In some ways, it forced us to communicate better. We learned that we cannot let frustrations build up until they explode. We have to talk about our feelings even when it is difficult. We listen to each other more carefully now. My relationship with my daughter is slowly healing. There is still a distance sometimes, a memory of the betrayal. But there is also a new understanding. She has apologized many times with tears in her eyes. She understands now the gravity of what she did. I have forgiven her. I know she was a child, caught between two cultures, and manipulated by her own teenage emotions. I am learning to be more flexible. I am trying to understand the pressure she faces as a young person growing up in this society. We are trying to find a middle ground, a place where our cultural values and her need for independence can coexist. My son, who was the silent victim in all of this, has started to find his voice again. For a long time, he was very anxious and clung to me. Now, he is slowly regaining his confidence. He has made a few new loyal friends who have stood by him. I make sure to spend extra time with him, to reassure him of my love and his safety. Our family life is quieter now. The easy, spontaneous laughter has not fully returned. But there is a deep bond between us, forged in the fire of our shared trauma. We appreciate each other more. We do not take our family for granted. We still have good days and bad days. Sometimes, a memory will trigger the old pain, and we have to work through it together. But we are a family. We are survivors. I see my children growing, and I am still proud of them. They are learning to be resilient and compassionate because of what they have been through. Our journey has been incredibly difficult, filled with tears and heartache, but we are still standing. We are rebuilding our home, not on the foundation of a naive dream, but on the solid ground of hard-won experience and enduring love. I want to share this story for a very important reason. I want people to understand that things are not always as they seem. When a child makes an accusation, especially in a Western context where child protection is taken so seriously, the system is designed to believe the child first. This is often a good thing. It protects many vulnerable children from real harm. But this system can also make terrible mistakes. It can fail to see the whole picture. It can be blind to cultural differences. It can tear apart loving families based on a misunderstanding or a child's temporary anger. Children are not always liars, but they are not always truthful either. Sometimes they do not understand the difference. They see the world in black and white. They exaggerate to make a point. They are easily influenced by their friends and the world around them. When my daughter reported me, she was not trying to destroy our family. She was trying to solve a teenage problem in the only way she knew how. She used the powerful words this new culture had taught her, words like abuse and rights, without fully understanding their weight. She did not know that her words could bring our world crashing down. It is crucial for teachers, counselors, and social workers to be more careful. They need to have more cultural understanding. They need to investigate situations more deeply before they take such drastic action as removing children from their home. They need to understand that parenting styles differ across cultures. What might seem harsh from one perspective might be a normal and loving form of discipline from another. They must learn to listen not just to the child's words, but also to the story of the family. They must look for the love and the history that binds them together, not just for the cracks that temporarily divide them. My story is a warning. It is a plea for more wisdom and compassion within the systems that are supposed to protect children. And it is a message to other immigrant parents. We must learn to navigate this new world carefully. We must talk to our children. We must try to understand their struggles as they stand with one foot in our culture and one foot in another. My journey from separation to reunion has taught me a painful but valuable lesson. The truth is often complicated. It is a story with many sides, and we must fight to make sure that the whole story is heard before a family is broken.